This is Blessed Radio, and it's just past 6 p.m. This is the spiritual discussion program. I am Saad, and very soon my colleague Gregory will be joining us. As I said, this is the spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Uprushin. And every week we have a new topic for discussion. The topic for tonight is the impact of spoken and written word. My colleague Gregory has just joined us. Welcome, Gregory. How are you, and how is the weather where you are?
One is fine, weather is cool.
Okay. Down here in southeast London, it is overcast. And also you can say cool. It was warmer earlier in the day, but it's now cool. So welcome. So as I said, listeners, the topic for the discussion tonight is the impact of spoken and written word. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And then there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1. That's the number one.com. If you scroll down on the homepage, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. I'm going to begin with, what is the Grail message? Grail message, in the light of truth, by Uprushin, is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized, and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Uprushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happening, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic that we're discussing tonight is the impact of spoken and written word. The impact of spoken and written word. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1, that's the number one, .com. If you scroll down on the home page, you will see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. Gregory and our listeners, as usual, I like to begin with the meaning of the words of the topic, which is again the impact of spoken and written word. So the first key word there is impact. And I looked up in the dictionary and I've got two meanings there. The first one, the action of one object coming forcibly into contact with another. I'll just repeat that. The action of one object coming forcibly into contact with another. And they said, no, I won't give the example. It's not necessary. So, Gregory, what would you say about this meaning? Are you on mute, Gregory?
Sorry, could you repeat it again, please?
Yes, this is the meaning of the word impact. The action, one meaning at the moment, the action of one object coming forcibly into contact with another.
Well, such a definition or a description is what you find in the sciences. And these are pointers. But
Okay.
it's not, you cannot use these pointers to represent all of it, though it's a good pointer.
Okay, that's fine. So let's look at the second meaning in the dictionary for the word impact. It says a marked effect or influence. And to give an example of this, our regional measures have had a significant impact on unemployment. So
Yeah,
quickly, I'll just repeat that. A marked impact or influence.
that is more precise and it's acceptable.
Okay, thank you for that. So, and we know this is a spiritual discussion program, so we have to get that angle from these meanings, which dictionary is not necessarily giving spiritual meanings. So anyway, we will continue. So the next key word is spoken. And as you look, Gregory, I'm afraid I'll have to give you two meanings here because the first meaning is not very helpful. It says spoken. It's a past principle of speak. So I won't let you comment on that one. Let me look up the word speak, which is say something in order to convey information or to express a feeling. How is that one, Gregory?
Well, like I said, these things are accepted, but they do not represent the whole because it is so basic when you say the spoken word.
Yes.
So you find that you are forced to repeat it again. But once spoken word is mentioned, the picture that arises is voice.
Okay. So, and obviously the voice we use is the organ or the mode of how we speak.
Or one can also attach the word sound.
Sound. Okay. All right. Let us continue. So the next word we have in the topic is written. So again, I looked it up in the dictionary and I've got two meanings there. First one, mark on a surface, typically paper, with a pencil. So let me say it properly. Mark letters, words, or other symbols on a surface, typically paper, with a pen, pencil, or similar implement. This is the meaning of written, Gregory. Is that any help for us?
That is also helpful. But
Okay.
what is most important is the individual to strive to have a pictorial language to represent that concept of writing.
Okay. Okay. So, well, I also look up the whole meaning together of the topic as well. So, because sometimes there's just too much individual words and they don't come together as we'd like. So, the second meaning of the word written, it says compose. Oh man, written. Okay. So, compose and send a letter, this is in brackets, to someone. So, compose and send. They're saying send, I don't know, to someone. And they put letters in brackets, so I'm not quite sure it has to be only letter. But anyway, compose and send to someone. Is there any help there?
Well, there are glimmers one can pick out.
Okay. Okay, let us continue because I think we will have to go to the full topic meaning for us to really get this picture. So the next word is word. And there it says in the dictionary, I've got three meanings actually. The first one, a single distinct meaningful element of speech or writing used with others or sometimes alone to form a sentence and typically shown with a space on either side when written or printed. So let me repeat that. A single distinct meaningful element of speech or writing used with others or sometimes alone to form a sentence and typically shown with a space on either side when written or printed.
That is also helpful.
Okay, okay. And the next one, because you've got three meanings, is a command, password, or signal. Someone gave me the word to start playing. That's the example there. A command, password, or signal. Is that helpful?
That is used, that which you just expressed is only used as a verb um, for an activity. It's not a noun. So one should not take that one wholly. Because someone
Okay.
gave you, you can see it's a figure of speech. It's not the real thing.
Yes, yes. And the third meaning is a promise or declaration. That's again the meaning of word. Is that any good, Gregory?
Well, you will also find these are just figures of speech. But
Hmm.
that word, it stands on its own. So that's what we are supposed to look into.
Okay. So what I did next, because I mean now, we do have AI now. So I took up the whole meaning, the topic title today is the impact of spoken and written word. And I should put that into Google AI. And this is what it gave me. Spoken and written words have distinct impacts. Spoken words are immediate and emotive, conveyed through tone and non-verbal cues, while written words are permanent and allow for reflection, creating a lasting record of thought. The written word fosters careful deliberation, potentially reducing emotional intensity, whereas spoken words, in the heat of the moment, can lead to impulsive statements. Both forms are powerful tools for shaping thoughts, culture, and society, with the choice of modality influencing the message's emotional impact and audience's reception. Um, okay, I know it's a very long statement. But what do you think of that? What do you say about this?
You yourself already confirmed it's a very long statement, so it will take time to put it together to reflect over it.
Yes.
So you'll find that there are, you can glean out something from these expressions, which are very helpful, but it requires further reflection.
Okay. What we'll do, I'm not going to keep, how can I say, going deeper into these words like this way. Let us go and ask some questions. Uh,
But I
you
thought
know,
there's a need to look at the sort of the spoken and
okay, let's
then
do that.
the written.
Yes.
In the spoken, there is, we must consider a scenario in which voice is used as an expression. That
Right.
is where you have the spoken. That's the picture. And voice used as an expression in a language. So the setting is a language, and voice is now used as an expression. That is where we have the spoken word. Whereas the written word, there are, um, you also have an expression, but which is encapsulated in symbols
Okay.
in a
I'm trying to.
language.
They're also using language. That's what I was
Yeah,
thinking. It's still
yeah, both
language.
of them is still a language, because when one is referring to the written word, where we are familiar with the English one, there is also the Arabic or the Hindu, or they are different. These are, but you find that symbols are used, all right, as expressions in a particular order. So that's what you find with the written word. Whereas what the human personality initially absorbs is the spoken word. Much later, then subsequently the written word.
Yes, I'm pretty sure, although I can't prove it right now, but let's say the early human would have been speaking rather than writing
Correct.
before. So
Correct.
that would be the first way of communication.
Mm.
And then somehow you said symbols, and I was thinking, I got a bit confused, and then I thought maybe you were referring to the alphabet, because that's how when you write, it's an alphabet, but it could be called symbols because the
Well,
old Egyptian,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, we have the
they're like, I'm
Egyptians
not
and,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, the Arabic, I'm not quite sure we call them alphabets. In the
Yes,
Hindu, they have languages, and then even in Hebrew, you find some writing from left to right, some from right to left, some from top to bottom, some
that's
maybe
true.
from bottom to top. They just use symbols. There are some who use symbols also, like you just mentioned correctly, the Egyptians, where they
Y-
use, so they use
Yes,
these are
hieroglyphics.
symbols.
Yes.
Correct, very correct.
Mm.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, you could say as many as there are people,
There
is
are.
each one has the variety of expression or languages. You can say, yeah, left to right, right to left, up and down, maybe up, the bottom to up. I'm not sure on that one, but
Oh,
definitely they are. And symbols and alphabets, yes, they're just a way that has developed with different peoples, for
correct,
sure.
correct.
Over, you can say thousands of years,
Mm,
that has happened. So yes. But then yeah, but it's a written, that's the point, it's written.
mm,
And then
that's right.
there's yeah, and the other one is the speaking, which I mean, this Google AI has given me so many points, but I in a way I don't want to go into every single part of that, because I have 100 questions I can say, I can ask uh, about things that are happening today in the world, um, in how we behave and express ourselves with language and speaking and writing, So I'd like to focus on that, rather than be technical, because then we are not addressing, um, you know, the issues that are going on. Right. So, okay, let us go go to the first one that I would like to explore. So, which especially what's happening in the news. You see, that's what one of the reasons when I pick these topics is uh, I'm sort of I could say inspired or touched by what's happening in the world, and then it gives me think, oh, this is something that is going on. We should go into these things. So. Uh, Again, in this modern day world that we have, with the rise of internet, we have so many types of media. You could say with a plethora of choices. Social media. We know, for example, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, WhatsApp, and so on and so on. And then we have the traditional radio, TV, press, magazines, so on. And even the modern one is podcasts and books, of course. And what I want to go there is that people are making claims and counterclaims and expressing opinions. We have, let's say, real news and fake news, and these make headlines and sensational uh, statements or remarks, even outrageous remarks. And then, so my question, Gregory, on all these things is, how does one know if they're saying the truth or untruth?
That is a profound question. And the only way one may find out is to investigate whatever has been put out there, if one has the resources to do so. And it's not just an arbitrary investigation, there must be the weighing of these statements which have been put out there, if one has the time us as a resource, the weighing and the examination of these statements which have been put out there in accordance with the laws of nature. This is very important, for whenever the individual makes an effort to weigh and examine in accordance with the laws of nature, then one will find the margin or the possibility of error is greatly reduced. So there is the need to investigate and not take what is put out there on face value. As
Thank you
long
for
as you don't have that coming up, then one can easily be swindled with words.
Absolutely. And Gregory, you mentioned about we have to use the laws of nature to weigh and examine, but that assumes or presumes that you know what the laws of nature are. And in a sense, when you think of nature, oh, we know what is nature, but maybe the laws of nature, we are not so, how can I say, clear or familiar, you know. So please, can you help us to,
Yeah,
how do we
actually,
realize these laws?
even
Yes.
before one mentions the laws of nature, there are many who also have that um, personal reflection. This is what has been said about some other people. Now, if such were said about me, what would be my response to such statements? That already tells you that the individual is reflecting personally about it. It is also important to know, as at the time when the Ten Commandments were given, it was not given to say, okay, these are the laws of nature. No. However, if one is to reflect on this, you find that these advice, this fatherly advice that has been granted in the Ten Commandments also resonates within the laws of nature. That law of nature, which one may expressed as that of reciprocal activity, the law of reciprocal activity. One may use that one, to say, okay, fair enough. If it touches me, how would I feel? Because many a time we become concerned, we become very careful about matters when it touches us personally. If it doesn't touch you personally, you keep it far away, and there will be all sorts of things you can input into it. But when it touches you, you become very cautious. So cautiously, if this were done to us, how would one feel? And secondly, one may also consider the scenario that we have all these statements being made. Where do I stand? Am I homogeneous with all people who make some of these frivolous statements and others defending? Where do you stand? Because you want to pitch yourself somewhere. So, because you want to pitch yourself somewhere, there is that homogeneity, unless you want to stand alone. So, you want to be attracted to one camp or the other, or maybe not attracted at all. So, you find from that particular sensing, there's that which is one may refer to as the attraction of homogeneity, because you wish to belong to either this or that or to none at all. So one can already have a sensing about that. The third part is, okay, how do you yourself feel? Do you feel weighed down by these statements, or do you feel elated by these statements? For many, these statements are just statements. In their thoughts, they may consider it a bit. In their intuitions, it is different. Because with one's intuition, one is able very quickly to say, oh, this weighs me down. I don't want to get involved. That weighing me down, or thoughts which weigh the individual down, that already gives you a picture of gravitation, that which is dense, like you have very dense thoughts, that tends to weigh the individual down. Whereas some other thoughts, like that of music, tend to make the individual as if he's floating, he feels elated. So, with these expressions which you find everywhere, you ask yourself, do I feel any elation? Do I pitch myself with them? Is there any homogeneity? These are the questions which, one may be asking. And the first one, which basically, suppose this thing were to have an impact on me, that means you now have a reflexive effect coming into being. So these are the first impressions that the individual must hold. But very clearly, all individuals, all human personalities who have attained maturity, all have the free will to choose or not to choose. Because all have the free will to choose or not to choose, therein lies the responsibility. Because the responsibility only arises where there is free will. where the free will is lacking, there won't be any responsibility. For instance, you won't hold a fly accountable. You won't take a fly to the court and say, look, why was the fly here? Why did he do this? You will not hold an ant accountable. That is out of the question because the animistic behave themselves in accordance with their nature. But the human personality that has the free will to decide or not to decide, that human personality has that free will, and therefore responsibility comes in.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for these words. You have said a lot there. You pointed out about responsibility, and it's up to each individual to weigh and examine and say according to their senses. And you feel what is homogeneous. You were using that one words that because I was wondering about how to know what is the truth or untruth, and I was thinking, well, I won't ask just now. I'll wait till I'm just going to say some other things. So the other side of this little break, I'm going to say in a minute. I'd like to ask you a bit more about that in a moment. So, dear listeners, I want to let you know you're listening to Bless Radio. This is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Aprushin. If you wish to know more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, G-R-A-I-L, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is the impact of spoken and written word. The impact of spoken and written word. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is blessradio1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And we are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space, Grail message, space, the topic of the show tonight, which is the impact of spoken and written word. And after the show, you can listen to the recording of this show. Again, that's on YouTube. Go to youtube.com. It's the same words in the search box. Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space, Grail message, space, the impact of spoken and written word. And of course, you can listen to the recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM /radio/Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, there's so many points to look at here about us human beings, in respect to recognizing the truth uh, or falsehood, you know, and you have pointed us to that we have to use our ability of weighing and examining. We have been given that free will to decide, and so, and yes, we have lots of influences around us. Um, you know, we say information and even disinformation, as they say, around, and as you also pointed that we want to pitch ourselves in a place we are obviously which we feel is comfortable with us, you know, that we can feel, we could say, safe about it, or sure about it. Um, Now, um, so um, what I mean, you pointed to the uh, you know, spending time to investigate ourselves, and you said could take some time and resources for that, and but Gregory, is there, and of course there's the laws of nature which we pointed to as well. So which we need to get familiar with them to be, you know, let's say, to accept that this is the way you can assess something. So but Gregory, is there like something we can really be sure about? Is there something, you know, because why I'm saying that, this is we have our personal experience of life, which we can rely on ourselves. Then there's other people talking about their experience or making something up even, and we cannot be there to watch what they're doing. So are we only meant to rely on our own personal experiencing? And when somebody else says something else, I mean, we do have to think about what they say, because we have to interact with these people as well. You're not on your own. So how can you, what do? You just reflect, wait, don't make a decision until you're sure of what to do?
Well, you made a statement that is it that we trust ourselves? So don't you think we need to reflect on our own, what we have perceived internally or externally? For that which is coming externally, most likely from others, from observations, those things, whatever they are, they must be weighed, they must be examined. For if you do not weigh them or examine them, then you run into that prospect of misunderstanding the context in which these observations have been made. So, whether they come from somebody you trust or distrust, there is the need to weigh them. The weighing already gives us that impression of gravitation. The examination gives the strong impact, the strong effect of bringing things together, trying to find things which are homogeneous within the statements, and also in that process, the need is there to say, if this were to apply to myself, in that case, you have a reciprocal activity. Or if you have two, in quotes, warring parties, if what one says about the other one, if it were reversed, what will it be? But all these are a complete waste of time and energy. That is a complete waste of resources. For the human personality that is discerning, that strives to discipline itself in his or her observations, will subsequently prepare around itself an environment in his or her thoughts, an environment in his or her intuitions. And these in reciprocal activities will help a lot in making decisions for when something is then observed externally, because of that particular environment that has been well prepared through life itself, experience then comes in. One should also know that we are not alone. There are those who may not be of flesh and blood, but who form part of our conscience, who quietly, again and again, advise. The advice which is given is not forced upon us. Only subsequently, when we have grown wiser through observations, are we able to recognize these things effectively. So the key thing here is that the individual must strive again and again to prepare his environment through experiencing. At the initial stage, there will be challenges, but subsequently, the individual purifies itself by taking some things in and rejecting others. Rejecting others because of inconsistencies. Whereas those things which are consistent in themselves is able to accept because it's able to make sense out of it. Therefore, there is this continuous effort. There is this continuous exertion by the individual to purify its environment and to ensure that that which may then approach it is able to handle it effectively. That is what is expected of the individual in accordance with the laws of nature.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I know you're talking about many things there. One thing I picked up was about the conscience. So that's another voice. Sometimes people think, oh, that's my inner voice, conscience. But actually, it is, let's say, another. I don't want to confuse people, so I have to be careful. It's not our personal voice when it's a conscience, although we might think that easily. Our own voice is supposed to be the intuition, the voice of the spirit, our spirit. And then there's other human spirits in the beyond who are also trying to support us. Like you said, we are not on our own. And these are giving advice through our conscience. So it could be more than one voice in there. People who have, again, we would have to say, go and read the Grail message in more detail, to refer to the Grail message to get the proper detailed information about it, rather than us in this short time that we have to discuss, go into it. But that's another helping voice, let's say, that is there, which we can listen to. And what it's telling me is there's an outer sensing of things, we say in the physical world, that we have our five senses, and there's also an inner sensing of things, which is one is the intuition that we know, and then there's the conscience as well, the inner working, which is not physical. And these are meant to guide us. But again, we're not supposed to, how can I say, push anybody to this is the way it is or that way it is. You're supposed to discover this yourself, because the best teacher, as they say, is your own experience, and because otherwise it's just somebody telling you something. So we can only advise to recommend that people pick up the Grail message to get a deeper understanding on these matters. So thank you for that, Gregory. I have so many questions today, but the time is short, what I can see. Let me jump into this one now, which is hot in the news at the moment in UK. Gregory and listeners, you know, we keep hearing every day for months that, oh, the so-called illegal immigrants are coming in and they're being housed in hotels or some accommodation, and even they are disturbing the local people or the culture there with their presence and activities. It sounds virtually racist if you look on the outer surface, but there's an anger amongst the, let's say, people, British people already here, that, oh, these people are getting, outsiders are getting some benefit from the government, which we are paying for it. And yet, in the times of today, there's a lot of suffering financially, crisis, they call it cost of living, and they don't like to accept that somebody else is getting, in quotes, free help while they're suffering, the local people. So, and there are a lot of protests going on this issue. Even the people using the UK flag, Union Jack, as if that is the symbol of their upset. So my point is that this is a visible protest, in, you could say, speaking, because protests, they're shouting and making statements, not so much written in the press, yes, and the newspapers. But so the point I want to ask Gregory, when this is happening, you can see there's like a level of, I don't know if I can call it hatred, but unhappiness, or that's probably the understatement, upset, big upset, you can say. And that, yet there are many other issues going on as well, but this seems to be the highlight in the time at the moment. I'm not sure it's the biggest issue, but it seems to be a big issue. So what I want to ask Gregory, is this a way, when there's a problem, is protesting or criticizing a real way to solve a problem or find a solution to an issue, specifically this particular big issue, so-called big issue? Is this the way to resolve it, or if not, what is the best way?
First, finding a solution to a particular challenge is not, or one needs to rephrase it, the clamor of the masses does not necessarily find a solution to the current challenges. For if the individuals who are involved in these activities were to weigh carefully the statements which come from them or from others, if they were to weigh carefully and examine to find out if indeed the statements which have been made are factual, and if factual, then what would be the basis that has precipitated many a person to leave their abode and move further somewhere. Basically, the challenge is global. It's global in the sense that as long as there are human personalities here on earth, human personalities have their own skills and practices. That being the case, you will find where you have the scenario where all hands are on deck, vigorously pursuing goals which is supportive of everyone, then it becomes one for all and all for one. If that is used as the basis, then many of the challenges will vanish. But humanity hasn't matured. They haven't matured to that extent to accept it. And therefore, you have these problems. For when looked at very carefully, many a resource is collected from these countries where these so-called asylum seekers live. Had those resources been well managed, then there would have been no need for those people to leave that environment. It is the fundamental misunderstanding of what life is that precipitates all these sort of dissensions, where selfishness is the basis. If selfishness is done away with by all, not only the people seeking asylum, or those people who are in a country that is being visited by the asylum seekers, if selfishness is done away with, where the individual is prepared to honestly work and permit the other individual to work, then many of these problems will not be there.
Apologies, I somehow got an interruption. So thank you, Gregory, for this answer and a picture that you have given us. Um, um, where, like our phrase which you use all the time, all for one and one for all. If you come only from one side of the story, can you imagine that the other side of the story, people will not be happy, because it's only one-sided. So you can't ever, just because you live in your country, you think, oh, nothing, it doesn't matter what the other people are suffering outside, it doesn't involve me. But unfortunately, that's not the reality. People have gone from one country to another, to manipulate and to seize things. And then maybe the reaction of it might happen 50 years later, 100 years later. And that time the new generation has come. So that the current generation has no idea where the cause of the problem has come from. They just see, oh, these people just arrived. But wait a minute, who was the one who caused the trouble in the first place to make that problem? So, which they very quick, let's say, conveniently try to not even remember. They don't even consider. It's always one-sided. Well, that life has to be balanced. You can't eat food, one type of food alone. You have to eat the balanced diet, as they say. So how come in the country you think, oh, there's a balance just by your own people, and you forget the rest of the world as if they don't exist? And all the time we are trading and taking goods from them, other countries, and then doing the same, vice versa. But when it comes to people, suddenly there is some different thing going on. Well, it's all part of this world. So it's a bit weird, this narrow-minded thinking. So if your own country is the only country on this world and you can exist by yourself. So it is a very it's a narrow-minded way of seeing things. So thank you for that.
Just a minute.
Say again, sorry.
Just a minute. Most of the time, when people are experiencing, they consider themselves only, which is fair enough. They consider themselves as they are here. And sometimes some reflect what will happen hereafter. Do many even give it a thought that when they have transitioned over, that they'll be considered so-called Christian or Muslim, rich or poor? Or does it mean when they cross over, they're going to be eating a specific type of food and then they'll be taken care of, preferably compared to others? It is the lack of the knowledge, because they feel so comfortable in their one-sided view. That's why they do not consider the welfare of others. As you consider the welfare of yourself, every human personality, flesh and blood, also consider their own welfare. And because of that, the goal remains the same, the welfare of humanity here on earth. As long as that is of prime importance, then you find that it becomes very difficult for people to leave their abode where they were born into to start migrating. If subsequently they have to migrate, they do it purposely to give some unique values to others in exchange for other things.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for these points you have made there. Just going to let the listeners know that you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushin. If you wish to know more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we are discussing tonight is the impact of spoken and written word. The impact of spoken and written word. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you will see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. Also, we are broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space, Grail message, space, the topic of the show, which is tonight the impact of spoken and written word. And after the show, which we finish at 8 p.m. UK time, you can listen to a recording of this show. Again, in the same way, go to youtube.com, type in the search box, Bless Radio 1, and that's the number one again, space, Grail, message, space, the impact of the spoken and written word. And of course, you can listen to the recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO .fm/radio/bless radio 1. That's the number one again. Now, Gregory, the idea is to look at the impact of spoken and written word. And we talked about the protests that people are protesting, which is mostly spoken, although it can be driven through the written word, the press, and so on, and social media. But I want to look at another aspect. Again, all of these things are very big in this current times. People, with this ability of posting things on this media, you can criticize, condemn, act holier than thou attitude, and even, let me just stay with that one for now. So is that, again, Gregory, a way to act, condemning and criticizing, and this holier than thou attitude? Is this a right way to make your point?
Well, it is said, whoever seeks that which is noble should first start with themselves. So with that, it is sorted. Because when the individual personality seeks to improve or to ennoble itself through its activities, such will have an effect on others. How the individual then respond to challenges will manifest through his personal conduct.
Thank you. That's very, I couldn't say, straightforward and simple. Before you point the finger on others, look at yourself. So yeah, thank you for that. Now, we talked about earlier about accountability and even scrutiny, because, as I said, people are behaving this way, protesting that way, and this way. And then, yes, we have a law of the country, of course, and police there. But I'm wondering, Gregory, is there another way which should be a way for, like you mentioned, accountability and scrutiny? Is it, let's say, through government or through self-governance, of regulating ourselves because it doesn't seem to work. That's why I'm saying this, that people behave, even when there's a law, they do, in quotes, break the law. And then when there's self-governance, let's say press or whatever, the people, because they're trying to govern themselves, it is, they just pick and choose what they want to do. So is there, let's say, another way that, how can I say, things can be done, again, I would say in a helpful way, beneficial way, rather than, again, causing anger and upset?
Many a person wishes to have models they can refer to. and say, oh, this person is successful in this, and they want to emulate that person in his activities, in his work ethics. In that particular scenario, it is only fair to demand of the government to show examples how things should be. One can imagine where little resources which has been collected by government is used judiciously to the benefit of all. That means corruption is completely out of the question. Then you will have the country people, the individuals that make up the nation. They will have confidence. They will have trust. They have confidence because again and again in their different areas of activities, they can rely that there will be fairness, that whatever resources is made available to government is used in such a way that there is transparency. Once there is transparency, which is now a result of the responsibility of government, of individual, then there will be no need for grumbling or for protest because the individual participated in the creation of these models. So you find nowadays people are crying for, oh, we are looking for a role model, a role model. This is fair. Governments and individuals in society should, in their activities, become role models. That there is corruption and there is violence and things of that nature is because within the fabric of the society, many people seem to go scot-free when they violated the norms of the society. That does not give the confidence that the individuals that make up society need. And in that case, protests, violence becomes the response to these minimal, to the most trivial things that may occur in society. So the government must be the change. The individual must be the change. The government should become a role model just like the individual. And in that case, they are striving towards the same direction. That is the case where there is one for all and all for one.
Thanks again, Gregory, for this answer. Um, I just saw I've got a couple of questions from a listener now, so I'll put them forward now. They're asking, how do our words, spoken or written, create our reality? How do our words, spoken or written, create our reality? That's the first one.
Well, you will find that our words, whether they are spoken or written, these are expressions from ourselves because we put them out. So we press them out. Therefore, they are expressions from ourselves, spoken or written. Because we press them out of ourselves, it means they already are there. But now we've given them a form which are recognizable. In that case, It means, therefore, that we have taken these expressions from within ourselves. It means, therefore, they are wrapped around us or they form our environment. That these expressions are, or these expressions are impressions in our inner environment which sometimes are not perceptible to us through the five senses, but they remain there. They form that environment around us and in us. In that particular scenario, you will find that in accordance with the laws of creation, that particular law of the attraction of homogeneous species, that particular case, more and more of that which is like that which we harbor in us will approach us. That means the environment which we have created using our thoughts, using our intuitions, will be reinforced so strongly within us. That is why we're able to take from it and express it. Otherwise, you cannot give to others that which you yourself do not have. At best, you may share that which you have. So if you have distorted views and wickedness, it is that which you will share in accordance with homogeneity. You cannot share that which is noble because you lack it. So one can see how our thoughts, spoken or written, now form our environment, because those expressions were already there. We only give an outward expression to these things which we already hold.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Yes, thank you for that, Gregory. Wanted to give another sort of way to look at these things, because the origin of the expression is our spirit, the real living person or personality. You know, it's not the physical body that is. Well, first of all, words I know are not visible in the physical sense, like our actions are visible, but they are still only an outer expression. There's the inner expression, which is, you could say, which is coming from our spirit. Let's say we have a wish or desire, or even a will, and that is in the Grail message, it's more correctly said as a volition. So the voice of your spirit is your, you can say, expressed through the volition or the intuition, and that is again not visible. All of these things are not visible, but it starts from there. And the way I like to give an example is, before you move your hand or arm or any part of your body, it is not just a brain signal that comes into your from your brain down to that where the hand or arm that you're moving. It is actually originating from your spirit. So the instruction comes from your spirit, and it travels from the spirit. I won't go into all the details of it, into the brain, and from the brain to our nervous system, to the arm or the hand to make it move. But the actual instruction started before because then you would say, oh, what's happening in the brain to make that happen? So the real thing is somewhere happening on a non-physical level, but it's manifesting in the physical level. So similarly, our words, it's actually, we're just expressing our wish or our will of the spirit, and then the mouth is producing those voice and the words or in written form, what our spirit is wanting to say. So if we go back really to the, let's say, a deeper level of understanding of this mechanism, then you'll see, oh, okay. And as I said, those things are not physical, and yet they have a physical manifestation eventually, you know. So there is a connection between the physical and the non-physical worlds. Again, all these specifics of all this is really, we would refer to the Grail message rather than go into detail now. But yes, again, it requires a reflection. Oh, am I the body? Am I the brain? Or is it something more than that? And when you reflect, you will see, okay, yes, that's just the outer mechanism that we are talking about that we see, but there's also an inner mechanism, which is working together with the outer mechanism. And of course, we know in our body, there's a lot of things happening, in quotes, automatically, like the blood circulation. We're not having to think about that. And it is automatically happening. There's an unconscious way this body works as well. So there's so many, how can I say, aspects that we don't even think about or see when we are talking in these matters, and yet they're all connected. We need to see that full picture, you can say, to realize what exactly is the process. So thank you for that. There was a second question from the listener. Let me just go to that now. It was a follow-on from the first one. So the first question was, how do our words, or spoken or written, create our reality? And the second part of it, which has the strongest impact in terms of manifestation, or are they equal? So this is comparing spoken and written words. Which has the strongest impact in terms of manifestation, or are they equal? Gregory, did you get that?
Could you repeat it again? Sorry.
Yes. So I need to, it's like a two-part question, so I have to repeat the first part first, which you have answered. How do our words, spoken or written, create our reality? Okay, which you have answered. So the second part is, which has the strongest impact in terms of manifestation, or are they equal?
When one is comparing the effects, it depends on the environment. Spoken words, if not recorded, easily die away. Written words, by writing them, putting them in symbols for those who understand, that is a recording which may have a much lasting effect than the spoken words. Although with the spoken word, you will find that different emotions come in, the way the individual strives to express this spoken word. Some may express it in form of songs. Some may express it in sort of poetry or prose. Some may elongate some of the words. So there's all sort of variation. That is not possible for the written word, unless, however, the symbols which have been put there already indicate that. But one thing is clear, the spoken word which is not recorded, before long dies down. Whereas the written word, because it's recorded, that one persists for a much, much longer period.
Thanks, Gregory. When you were talking, replying there, I could think about some famous people who have been leading human beings. For example, Jesus, and I mean, let's say in more modern times we have had like Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and Gandhi, and so many others. And they were making speeches, proclamations, and they may have written, or they may not have written, but they were speaking it out, what they were declaring, and it had an influence on those people listening in a powerful way. And yes, it was written maybe afterwards down in some cases, and then it's gone on beyond these people who were listening. And but they were somehow powerful in their words, in speaking. And they didn't write, well, I can't say if in every case they didn't write down what they were saying. Um, uh, but let's say it was live. There were some live words being spoken, which were powerful, and that had the people, inspired, or maybe some people were angered in some cases. But it touched the people somehow. As I said, they only heard it. They didn't. So there must be something within the words which can move people. And then when it's written, I would say that it's not. Well, more people can see it or hear it. It may not be able to pass on the emotion as well as the spoken way, but it would, I would say, still give the idea, expression, what the person is trying to say. So, you can't really compare one is more powerful than the other when you're trying to say, because it depends on the listener, it depends on the people like to hear it or they don't want to hear it, So, but these words have an effect for sure. That is clear. Yeah, as I say, Greg, anything you want to add to what I've just said there?
There is much that many may benefit from in the examination of the work in the light of truth, the Grail message. What has just been discussed is only a tip of the iceberg, a very tiny tip. Should the individual be brave enough to examine this work, much, much more will be revealed, which will be amazing.
Thank you for that. Yes. Now, another question I have, Gregory. When we are speaking, should we be speaking frankly or be diplomatic?
Very simply, it was advice. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Anything in between is not expected. So when you are being diplomatic, what does that mean? It means you try to rip off another person and hiding behind it. So how should one speak? One speech should come from deep within himself or herself. Be as clarified as ever, for that is what you yourself will expect from others. If others were to speak to you in a language which you do not understand, you will protest about it. Therefore, when one speaks, one should make it simple and clear.
Thanks for that, Gregory. One of the reasons people, in quotes, we use this word diplomatic is because they, if they say that frankly what they feel, what they want to express, it can be considered disrespectful or insulting. So by being diplomatic, you're showing respect. So, it's like a fine balance, because that's how you can cause upset. So how should, again, when we speak, there's like a responsibility there, so speak, like you said, you could say truth, Otherwise, the other person will not know what you mean, or they will make a misinterpretation out of it. At the same time, if you're not, let's say, expressing it powerfully, the other person won't maybe get that picture that you how serious you are about this matter. So um, so Gregory, is there some like a fine balance of how you can speak like freely, openly, and yet not and still be respectful?
It is better to remain silent, for silence is in itself is respect for others. For if one is not clarified or one is not matured enough to know how to express himself or herself to others, then it is best that person remains silent. Else, if one considers itself matured enough to express his or her thoughts, one should express them in simplicity and in consistency with due respect to others. But the facts and the thoughts that one wishes to convey should be made simple enough for the receiver to comprehend.
Thank you very much, Gregory. Now, another issue is, as I said at the beginning of the show, that things are now more in public with this social media that we have. And let's say, especially again, the press I keep finding good in ruining people's reputation by spreading, let's say, lies, and because they have some agenda. So again, like we used before earlier, condemning or exposing some negative thing about a person, and then putting it into the public, and then of course that person can be embarrassed who's the target because of that thing. But sometimes it is even lies that are being spread. So yeah, so and even there's one of the 10 commandments that tells us, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. So Gregory, when this is lies or false things are being spread about, which is going to affect your reputation, how should one react? Keep silent, like you said earlier?
For those who have the resources, there may be need for clarification. That's all.
Okay. Because if you keep quiet, it's assumed guilt. So people will make assumption that
Correct. A simple statement put out for clarification. But nowadays, how do you do clarification in the social media?
Yes. It's just a war between one side to the other, to and fro. It doesn't end. It's a constant thing. So, okay, we'll move on. Can we solve every problem by talking and avoid violence? Or in some cases, we cannot reach an agreement, so force is the answer. So, but unfortunately, that would mean, Gregory, the one who is the strongest or with most resources will win. So let me repeat that one. So can we solve any problem or every problem by talking and avoid violence? Or in some cases, when we cannot reach agreement, must use force? Is the force the only answer? And yeah, let me stop on that one.
Only through simple examples can an individual convince another of his good intentions. Good intentions because subsequently they inspire confidence. Every individual wishes to have a role model, and that particular person who is observing you wishes to be like yourself. It's very simple in the case of music, where you find that you listen to a piece of music, it is so moving, and you start humming it. Without further ado, you start humming it. Or you go somewhere, you find some flower arrangement so beautiful, you want to just buy them off. So presentation matters because it grants us the confidence, the consistency, the way things we express ourselves. All this, not only in our speech, even in our clothing, the way we behave when we are with others, how we respond to challenges. These are the things which gradually build confidence. However, that confidence which have to be shared with others should not be done in a calculative manner. It should be an inner expression of joyfulness, which is similar to gratitude. So you express yourself. It's not that you are waiting for anything in return. But one thing is certain, you cannot predict tomorrow or the day after or years to come. That which you have granted someone today may return in one form or the other back to you years, may also be of benefit to others without you realizing it. But the way the individual cares to conduct itself is a key to the way forward.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Just want to let the listeners know that you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abrushi. If you wish to know more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is the impact of spoken and written word. The impact of spoken and written word. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is blessradio1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And you can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space Grail message, space the topic of the show tonight, which is the impact of spoken and written word. And then after the show at 8 p.m. you can listen to a recording of this show again on YouTube, which is the same words in the search box, Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space Grail message, space the impact of spoken and written word. And of course, you can listen to the recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. That's zeno.fm/radio/bless radio 1. That's the number one again. Now, Gregory, um, we are seeing lots of, let's say, war and crises of violence, let's say, and with very nasty and evil practices being carried out. And then, let's say, one side is suffering much more than another, and they're just not strong enough to overcome so easily. So, and then, Gregory, I remember, and listeners, that there's a story in the Bible of the Jews when they were slaves under the Pharaoh in Egypt, and it took almost 400 years before they were released, and that is when God sent Moses to rescue them. So that was a long, long time. So sometimes I wonder, because, and that is, as I said, very long time, and you're thinking, okay, people are complaining after 20 years or 50 years or even more, and they think this has to end, but it doesn't end, and it's inhuman what is happening. So my question here, Gregory, is: are we meant to wait for, let's say, God's command and will for this suffering to come to an end? Or are we meant to fight ourselves, to get ourselves out of this trouble, which looks like very difficult when you are on the weak with little resources?
The human personality must keep up with the struggle, must fight with the tools which are available to it, must fight using its intuitions, must fight using its thoughts, must fight in deeds. Normally, you have that for a time, that which is evil seems to triumph. But as long as the others start stirring, that which is evil, the days are numbered. Whether that one, like that happened in South Africa, or the countries before they had their independence, or the case in which you had the Jews under Egypt, that day will come. But there must be a lesson which, whether they are the victims or not the victims, a lesson which should be well stressed, well hammered in spirit, in one's intuitions, in one's thoughts, and in one's deeds. And that lesson is that which the individual has suffered in the hands of others, that which the individual has experienced, which tends to dehumanize it. The sufferer must ensure that in its activities here or hereafter, it does not inflict such on others. For in that case, in accordance with the laws of the attraction of homogeneity, it since the individual strives away from that which is evil, from that which is base, there will be no homogeneity, or there will be a lack of homogeneity in its activities here on earth or hereafter. In that case, it is fulfilling the tasks which it has taken upon itself to become self-conscious, for it has proceeded along the line of alertness. It has proceeded along the line of vigilance. It has proceeded along the line of good volition in accordance with the laws. It is patient and it perseveres. It seeks that which not only ennobles itself, but also ennobles others. In that case, it is one for all and all for one. For when one reflects very carefully, that's or those we refer to as neighbors basically in distance, who live in the nearest neighborhood, distant neighborhood from ourselves, you will find that there must be something common that has made it possible. And in the final analysis, are we not all striving to ennoble ourselves? That means we have the same goal. Therefore, if we find someone who is striving along such a path, should we not then support that individual to attain that goal? For in striving to support another individual to attain that goal, many in creation, in nature, many here that are perceptible to us, or not even perceptible to us, or those in the chain where the radiations of the blessings of the Almighty come through, all those, are they not striving to be in contact with us? Because they can already perceive that the radiations that flow through them, when they get to that individual here in flesh and blood, through his activities, he will share of that which he has received. This is common in music. This is common in writings. It will share, as in the case of music, because it brings so much joy and happiness to others. Just as we have in music, where the composer produces pieces of work which brings joys and happiness to others, so it is with each individual to strive in one way or the other in their activities, no matter how little, to express their activities, to fulfill their activities in such a way it will bring joy and happiness to others. To others doesn't mean the person has to be in your nearest neighborhood. For when the individual harbors that which is noble, which is genuine, then all that is genuine, which may not be perceptible to the physical eyes, will automatically be attracted. That is what many have still not realized. But as soon as the individual wakes up, as soon as the individual becomes spiritually awake, then these things will become a matter of course. And all conflicts that have precipitated due to lack of knowledge, all those conflicts will vanish.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer and explanation you've given. Um, what I'm seeing here, Gregory, is that, and listeners, that according to your attitude, because some people, are they of goodwill or are they of some other will, evil will? And, because people can all pretend on the surface they are good and act in a out of way, but inwardly they are planning and plotting something different. Of course, you can't hide things in the end because you always get found out because truth cannot be hidden. Your actions will betray you at one point because you can't hide it. Your intention is there, what you're trying to do, and you can only cover it up for a certain while. So what I see is that the world is so few countries or people, if I say even countries, I can't even see that they are genuine in their, what we have used the word genuine, in their intentions or good. Everybody has an agenda, mostly, which is, let's say, anti somebody else's agenda. They're not trying to live, like we say, all for one and one for all. It's only for themselves. Of course, that is now how, and then it's almost like survival of the fittest. Who is stronger will survive, and not really. How can I say, with goodness, good intention there. So then we see the consequences, which has been going on for centuries and thousands of years. One empire rises, and after some time, it dies out. Somebody else comes and takes over that same land. And then that one goes on for another few centuries or something, and then that collapses as well. Because, again, somebody's either stronger or they are not able to maintain themselves somehow. So this is our history, which is not a good, that's not giving a good hope for us in the future. We just repeat, everything is always being repeated, the same cycle, just different personality. The label is somebody new country, as in running the show, you can say that moment. And then we see the same cycle over and over, rise and fall. Almost, and there's even people who say they are chosen by God or whatever, or following God, they say, and they have the protection from God. And a lot of people claim this way, and they're still fighting each other. So it doesn't seem, again, there's some proper appreciation of what the real, what is this is just pure labels. They don't have a goodness in their heart. We are meant to be brother and sister. So this is not how they treat each other. It's one against the other. I think I've said my part there now. Let me move on to something else, Gregory. This is again in the news. So let's say we have some people again expressing themselves. Well, they say they're making a statement through making a joke, or which looks like an insult to a particular group. Let's say one person claiming that it was a comical statement, and then in today's world now, these statements, which is done on Twitter and so on, this again social media, and then the police now investigate to see, is this a crime or not? And then people are commentating, well, this is not a crime like theft or something, just somebody saying something. So Gregory, are these insulting, let's say, or joking statements, one person against another group or whatever type of scenario might be, is that a way to behave, or because let's say there are different people giving different interpretation to it. Oh, it's not a big thing. Another one is because there's other things more serious than that. So are these words that are spoken or written in so-called jokes, but insulting of one group or another, are they right? Or you're on mute, Gregory.
By their works, they reveal their inner being. And if what they have revealed through the channel of comedy, if it is of benefit to all, then the results are there for all to see. So there is no need to even go into these things because people will always reveal where they stand and how they stand through their activities. So people already judge themselves through the way they care to express themselves.
Thank you for that. I've got one more question before we finish the show. So, Gregory, again, we know there are religious or spiritual books, or holy books, as some people call them. I won't mention anything specific, but there are many followers in these religions or in the spiritual faiths, and they're somehow very powerful and influential. This is in written form now. Of course, they were spoken when they were originally given, but they were put in written writing. So I wanted to ask, are they powerful books, these books, because they're about life, or is there something in these religious or spiritual books which makes them powerful somehow over other things? Because obviously millions and millions of people are following these um, faiths.
The books in itself are not powerful. The books in itself, they what have been written there, these are only channels that have an impact on the individual who is open to such thoughts. When one is open to such thoughts, before long, the individual resonates in accordance with the attraction of homogeneity. The law of the attraction of homogeneity, one of the most appropriate expression for it is resonance. For when the individual, through these channels, what it has been able to read, and these words, these expressions have a great impact on it, it therefore forms its thoughts along similar lines. And therefore, whatever is similar or homogeneous to it, all this flows to the individual. That is what happens. It's not that the books themselves are powerful. For you can throw a book out there, say in the sciences, and it contains all sort of mathematical equations. If the individual doesn't understand it, then the book is virtually useless, because someone tries to read it. I mean, these are hieroglyphics. I don't understand it. It speaks a different language. He ignores it. But if the individual is able to digest it and investigates on it, and finds it very useful, then he can make progress. So the books in themselves are not powerful. However, the thoughts contained in these expressions, the individual may make it his own by resonating with it and therefore attracting similar thoughts to itself, which now have an overall impact on the individual and its environment.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for that. Uh, Dear listeners, we've come to the end of the show tonight. Hope you enjoyed the discussion on the topic of the impact of spoken and written word. I'm now going to read the foreword of the Grail message, which is entitled For Your Guidance. The bandage falls, and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I'm addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them a spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such it will become the shining light and star. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present-day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed-for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent, he's employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you're truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God. Up pushing.
Hello?
Sorry, Gregory, I was on mute. I didn't notice
you're
that.
mute, yeah.
I was trying to say, I hope you heard the words of the forward of the message.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, you heard. Okay. So yeah, sorry, listeners. Yes, I hope you've enjoyed the show tonight, and I just want to ask Gregory if you'd like to say anything to say goodbye to the listeners.
Well, wishing all listeners a very beautiful week ahead.
Okay. Same from me, listeners. Have a beautiful week ahead. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. with another topic. Good night and God bless.